Awesome. I'm the host, Michael Mann, on Planetary Health First, Mars Next, and I'm really excited to have two amazing founders. This is going to be driving our topic of founder to founder, and really all the kind of AI and healthcare, where that intersection meets. So, if you want to quickly introduce yourself, Vinay, I know I've been lucky to have you on, but just quickly introduce yourself, and then you afterwards, Josh, as well.
Yeah, definitely, Michael. Thanks again for having me on. Excited for this conversation. A little bit about myself. I'm Vinay. I'm co-founder and CEO here at Bonfire Analytics. By background, I'm an engineer. Was formerly trained in the biomedical engineering side. Worked at Stryker, and then realized that I was more called to entrepreneurship. So then pivoted to early growth stage digital health, and then actually transitioned from engineering to sales. And so I was selling into providers and payers, saw, there's a big pain point for a lot of companies that are looking to commercialize within that space, especially as it relates to data and insights. And so I joined forces with a good friend of mine from college, just like Josh here. And he and I started Bonfire Analytics a couple of years ago. And so, yeah, it's been an exciting journey, and, looking forward to the conversation here.
Cool. Josh,
cool.
Go
and
ahead.
I'm Josh Miller. My haircut. Yeah, I'm Josh Miller. My haircut's not nearly as nice as Vinay's, based on what I'm seeing. But quick background on myself is I actually met Vinay during undergrad when I was starting a company in the computer vision space. Grew that pretty big and sold it to Syngenta back in 2018. Now work at the intersection of data and healthcare for AI. So I run a company called Gradient Health. That what we do is we make data available to companies that are trying to build AI in healthcare. For example, if you're trying to build a mammography AI that can read mammograms, you need tens of thousands of mammograms to train an AI like that. That data is not easy to come by for good reason. And we help companies get access to it in a secure, compliant, and ethical way.
Well, man, I feel like we have the right people here to talk to really some good stuff in the intersection of digital health, health tech, AI, and just the founder journey. But should we start a little bit like how you guys stumbled across each other? You want to just kind of, the pizzas, late night pizzas, or where that happened? I don't know.
Yeah.
Vinay, like if I remember correctly, I think we had a couple classes together, and
Yep.
we were cool with each other, but I wouldn't say we hung out a lot during undergrad.
That's I think a fair characterization.
But then
Josh and I,
a half, 2 years ago, Vinay. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Vinay.
No, sorry. I think my connection was lagging there, but Josh and I just, to double click into what he said. Yeah, we weren't necessarily like the closest of friends in undergrad, but we did live down the hall from each other freshman year. And so we'd taken classes together, and, I definitely, had cross paths with Josh and heard about the work that he did with farm shots. And, that was a cool Duke startup success story. So definitely, it's cool to kind of come full circle after, undergrad, which now seems like a lifetime ago, where Josh is on his round 2, startup adventure. And, I'm here on my first, ride here. But we reconnected, once we were kind of searching for, early product market fit and fundraising. I'd reached out to Josh to kind of get his advice. And then since then, he's been a really cool supporter, mentor for us. And it's been exciting to see, how he's growing Gradient Health too. So yeah, that's kind of my side of things. I don't know if you had anything else to add there, Josh.
No, it's a well-told story. But yeah, I mean, it's been a pleasure to work with you, and I mean, I liked what you were doing enough that I wrote an angel check into Bonfire as well.
That's so right. You're an active investor in Bonfire.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah,
that's cool. That's awesome. You put your mouth where your whatever check is or whatever. I love it. So this is good.
I definitely try to put my check where my mouth is. I mean, I would say it's like angel investing.
Yeah.
Angel investing overall, I'm pretty bad at it, right? Vinay is obviously a success story, but on the whole, being a founder myself, I think I have a soft spot for founders.
Mm-hmm.
So I could get pitched not a great idea, but because
Yeah.
I have such a soft spot for people that like believe in themselves starting a company, I'm liable to still write a check.
Well, we
Anyway,
we might want to edit this out because you're going to get a lot of spam now. You know, it's just like all
Oh.
nonstop. No,
Oh
no.
yeah,
Anyway,
yeah. Let's definitely edit that
no,
part
I'm
out.
just no. We don't. These are unscripted and unedited, so we're not. But anyway, this will be our test, our AI test, if people are actually listening to our actual talk. So anyway. But anyway, this is awesome having you on. I would love, Josh, I think it'd be really helpful just on a skid mark scale, like scar mark tissue, like if you could do like a few minutes, just founder journey, what you've learned, pattern recognition. I know that's not the whole show. We're going to be doing other, but I think while you're here, I think it's so valuable.
Yeah. I mean, I would say, I started that first company when I was in undergrad. Around the same time I met Vinay. And I think one of the things that jumped out to me at the beginning was just how willing people were to help if you are willing to ask for help. So I had a lot of people mentor me and help me. And, I was a 19-year-old kid. It's like, what could I do in return for them? Not much, right? And so when I exited that company, I kind of felt like I had a little bit of a debt to the universe, right? In the sense that it's like, here's all these really wonderful, intelligent, thoughtful people that gave me time and thoughts without anything in return. And so I think when we exited that first company, the biggest thing I felt was in debt, not financially, right, but emotionally in a way. And so part of that was the reason I got into angel investing and mentoring, right? Because at the end of the day, it's like if I couldn't pay it back to those people, the best I could do would be to pay it forwards to someone else, like Vinay. Yeah. Although Vinay's got his own stuff, he doesn't need me that much. But it was a joy helping him at the beginning navigate the wonderful world of venture capital.
That's a good phrase, the wonderful world of VC. I do think Josh is being humble. He's definitely was a great source of like not only support to understanding the dynamics of fundraising as a first-time founder, but also how to deal with the like emotionally, how to make sure that you're taking care of yourself through some of the stressful parts, and not just fundraising but just generally. And I wanted to like just also react to like his message of paying it forward. I took that to heart, definitely. Like coming now on obviously our second year at Bonfire, so many people have been so helpful to us, Josh being one of them. And Jay and I also like have tried to do the same thing, and we've had other founders once we've raised reach out to us, and whenever possible we try to also pay it forward. And I do think that is a common like trait of a lot of great founders that we've met, is like they're just supportive people. And I love that the founder community is so closely knit. I do think like the kind of experience you have starting a company, it's like you kind of have to like go through it and like understand the day in and day out. And I think founders really get that more than most for other founders. So it's a great support system. But yeah, just echoing like what Josh said, I think it's nice to know that people have been paying it forward, because it's hard to necessarily just pay back the people who helped you. You can just sort of strengthen the ecosystem along the way.
Yeah, I love what you guys are saying. I'm curious. I mean, you talk about raising is so challenging, raising that money. How I would love, Josh, since you successfully exited, can you share a little bit about pre-exit, how that happened, what that was from your experience? I think that's such a valuable experience to be told.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on what round you're raising, but I think there's one thing that holds true to me across every, I've raised financing maybe 10 different times in my career, from angel rounds up to a Series A. The one thing that I think remains true is it's like very much so battle against yourself more than it is against the market or what VCs want, etc. Because in a way, you're going to get told no 50 to 500 times, right? When you're trying to raise money,
100%.
and it's very easy to get discouraged, and it's
Mhm.
very easy to get stressed out. And so raising venture capital, a lot of people think about it as this like outwardly focused thing, but the thing that trips up founders most of all is in like lack of inward focus, right? Lack of like, am I taking care of myself? Am I still believing in myself? Am I doing the things that I need to do to remain believing in myself, even after 100 people tell me no? And I think that's been one of my greatest experiences is learning how to do that, learning how to like tune out the no's, but still incorporate the feedback to kind of iterate over time. I think the other thing I've learned is like I have an incredibly close relationship with the folks that have made investments in my companies. I mean, some of them are like father figures to me, to a large degree. Sorry, I'm getting all emotional here, guys. That's just me, man. But I think the bond, like the relationship you have with a VC is what you make it. It can be a pure business transaction, but people don't go into VC to not have a relationship with the founder, right? It's probably a lot easier to make money in private equity when you never have to interact with the people you meet. A lot of people go into VC because they want that level of emotionality and involvement with the business and with the founder themselves. And so like my board teases me for it quite often, but I treat them more like reverse group therapy where there's 5 of them and 1 of me instead of 1 therapist and five folks in there. But it really is that way, right? Like it's like and having that support more than just the money is something that I think a lot of people undervalue, right? And choose the wrong people because of that.
And what was that like when you're exiting with that dialogue amongst your VCs, your early investors, your core? Like, how did you know, like that process? You know, a lot of times people say no and they keep on going, and they, or it's like, when do you say when? It seems like there's an intuition there, because at some point you got to exit, you got to realize the capital. So I'd love that mindset if you could share that.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think the mindset, I have a very different relationship with my boards from what I think is standard. I think they saw me as, look, could the company go longer? Yes. But at the time of the exit, I was like 23, 24. They're like, here's this kid who's just like this ball of anxiety doing it his first time. We've got a good return on the table. He's burnt out. Right. He's living on a $300 a month couch in the hood in Raleigh. Like, even if there's more opportunity left on the table, like we need to take care of our founder, right? And so I think there was that, right? I think on the reverse side, I think those last 2 weeks up until the exit were probably 2 of the most trying weeks of my life. In the sense that it boils many years of your life down to this binary outcome, right? So it's like I spent 4 years building the business, and all of a sudden it was either going to be millions and millions of dollars, or it was going to be probably $0, right? And there's literally a moment in time in which like that switch flip flops one way or the other, and drastically changes the course of your life. That's scary. Can I cuss?
Yeah, sure.
That's scary shit, man. Like
Yeah.
to spend 4 years of your life and have it distilled into just this one moment, right?
Mhm.
Of like either poof, magic happens or it evaporates into air.
Mhm.
And I think that those 2 weeks, again, were probably the most like anxious, exciting times of my life. Absolutely.
Mhm.
I mean, to the point that like I was such a ball of anxiety around it. I think I didn't really celebrate until like a month after the acquisition. I was just like sitting in my shower and I was like, holy shit, man, that actually happened. Like I just couldn't process it the day the wire transfers went through and everything got signed. Like I kind of had to unwind from that a little bit to actually realize it.
Well, man, where do we go from here, Vinay?
No,
Sorry,
I mean,
I didn't mean for that to be a little bit of a rambling answer there.
no,
But
no, no. I
yeah.
love that. I think that's like a raw founder experience. Like I
Mhm.
think that's how it should be, right? I think, people sometimes don't realize how trying those times can be. Like on the outside, it looks like, oh, a LinkedIn post about, hey, my startup got acquired, but behind the scenes, like look at all the stuff that's going on.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, and I actually wanted to echo like, I'm not surprised, by what you just shared about like it not hitting you for a while. I think that's like when you're in that sort of like mode of like building a company, it's very hard to celebrate wins because you're always thinking about the next thing.
Mhm.
And I feel like, you're going through it, obviously second time, like you must know that all too well. It's like, let's say, you sign a big contract. It's like, oh, now you're worrying about like launching them, keeping them happy, like,
Right.
the new clients. So I'm sure that it's like, it's hard to, at the moment of like, okay, this came to fruition and, the company got acquired. It's like, you need a lot of time to process that. And also it's like, probably reorientation of like sense of purpose, right? It's like so much of your identity is tied to the company, like what happens now. So yeah, I totally, hear you on that. Yeah.
Do we want to transition to you guys are both of you are deep into health tech, AI, adding value in this healthcare system. I'd love to get your perspective on what this is, the hype, really what's going on, where you see the value, and kind of what you guys are both really deeply in AI using these solutions.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I have seen for the first time in history, I would say in the last 3 months, is I've seen someone feed a model an image, right, like a CT scan or an X-ray, and the model's written a report about what it sees in that X-ray or CT scan perfectly from scratch, meaning no human in the loop, looked at an X-ray, wrote, "There's a broken rib here, air in in the chest cavity here, and this other issue over there." That was wild. That was this mind blowing moment that I had, right? Just being like, okay, it's not as good as a doctor is, nor will it probably be for a very, very long time. But seeing an AI do that from scratch after just looking at an image, I think was unlocked how I felt about the future. And so I think we're going to see more and more of that. I think we are going to see really powerful AI come out in the next 5 years that works in healthcare. The challenge will be, how do you compliantly, legally, and ethically integrate that AI into healthcare? I don't think there's technological risk. I think there's philosophical, ethical kind of risk in bringing AI in. Like one way you could think about that is like, if you build an AI that is trained on white Jewish guys from Florida, like me, that AI then is not going to work for other types of folks, right? And so you can, through making AI available in healthcare, exacerbate health inequality rather than fix it. If you don't train an AI and validate an AI to work equally across different populations of different kinds of people, whether it's age, race, ethnicity, location, income, everything like that. I'll pause there, but that's the stuff that I'm excited about.
Yeah, I love what you're saying because it's really not about technology. It's about privacy, governance, philosophical guidelines to really which really requires oversight with humans involved. So I love that.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and I think just to add a thought to what Josh, just mentioned, I think that that people, I think, view AI in all sorts of ways, but in healthcare, like the ability for care delivery to get even more like efficient and optimized, there's so much potential there. But I think, to your point, Josh, it's like it's not going to be autonomous, right? It's like the idea of like an AI co-pilot. Like there's always going to be some physician or practitioner involved with like how the AI is being used, so that it limits kind of like the risk or even the exposure from a legal perspective, like you're saying. But it is fascinating. Like I think radiology, I've always been super interested in, like, but that seemed like one of the most direct applications of like how AI can make someone's job like infinitely easier, by just being trained on so many data points and images. So yeah, no, I totally, I think, like agree with like what Josh said about like the direction of AI in care delivery. But yeah, I think the caveat is it's never going to be like completely autonomous, at least not in the foreseeable future. So yeah.
So I would love for you guys to share more about your companies, how you guys are really involved with, obviously different aspects of utilizing AI. Josh or Vinay, who wants to start?
I can start there. So we talk about AI in healthcare in terms of its applications, but not in terms of like what goes into building it, right? And at the end of the day, it's like every AI needs to be trained on data, and healthcare data inherently is private, right? So it's how do you build an AI that can do something like reading mammograms or reading chest X-rays without exposing it to people's data? It's kind of this really, really tough problem. And the way it works today is hospitals will hire some guy to kind of go through and manually de-identify and remove all the patient information, and get the data over to these companies that want to build an AI. But the infrastructure today means that those companies wait years and spend millions of dollars getting access to those data sets. What we've done is we've built large-scale de-identification of data that we can then provision to these AI companies that are building AI. So instead of waiting, 2 years and spending $2 million to build a data set, they can wait a week and spend 100,000, right? And the vision there is, look, anyone that's trying to build an AI that will help patients shouldn't have to spend millions of dollars and wait 3 years to even get started. Because then at the end of the day, we're denying value and delaying value to patients that need it. And that's what we set out to solve. So Gradient helps connect those companies to large-scale de-identified data for doing this kind of AI development.
How did you where did the thought come to like, how did you stumble upon this?
So my co-founder and I, the same co-founder for my first business, one day we were sitting on the couch, we're like, man, let's build exactly what we're describing, which is we were like, hey, let's build a mammography AI, right? Like, my mother-in-law had breast cancer. We were in the past, and I had been thinking about it at the time. And we were like, okay, let's get started. But it's not like pictures of cats. Like if you want to build a cat detection AI, you Google cats and get 1 million pictures. If you want to build a mammography and breast cancer detection AI, you can't just Google breast cancer and get 1 million images of breast cancer, right? For good reason. And so we're like, wait, if we have this problem of like, we want to build this thing, but there's no data for it, I wonder if other people have this problem. And it turned out they did, right? And so we pretty quickly found our way to product market fit based on that, but because it was a problem that we had for ourselves.
And so what areas within healthcare, you're in radiology, mammograms, what other areas that are you like collecting data sets?
It's all in medical imaging. So it's everything from
Okay.
CTs to MRIs to X-rays to ultrasounds.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I was actually curious, Josh, and one more question for you. Like, how often are you able to like refresh the training data, the images, for developing AI?
For some of them, we have like a live feed into the hospital, right? Which is kind of what you need,
Yeah.
because the machines change constantly, right? And
Mm.
so an AI that's trained on CT scanners from today is not going to work on every CT scanner we have in 5 or 10 years, right? And so there's some value to having this data be continual. That makes sense.
Mm.
All right, to keep the AI current with the actual hardware and infrastructure off of which the data is coming.
Got it. That's super cool. So like the algorithms that are built on top of the underlying data you're providing, those are getting like kind of retrained and refreshed, continuously as well.
Yeah. Not like it's not like every year they're retraining it, but certainly every
Right.
few years. Right.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Well, you should talk a little bit about Bonfire, because I mean, not only that, Michael, but I've been a customer of Vinay's in the past too, as well as an investor.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice. That makes the best. There is no conflict of interest when you're VC, right? Isn't that just better business, right? I mean, really, that's what I've heard.
In a way, I mean, there's definitely conflict of interest. So that's why I had my chief revenue officer sit down with Vinay. I was like, I have to recuse myself from this conversation, decide whether his tool is good or not.
Yeah.
Right? So.
But I was just meaning like it only makes sense if you're investing in something. You'd actually like if you're investing in an ice cream company, you want to know that you're actually eating that ice cream and loving it. Or whatever.
That you would like that ice cream.
Yeah.
That's true.
Go ahead, Vinay. You're up to the microphone.
Yeah. No, I think multiple, like Josh said, multiple circles of overlap here. Friend, classmate, customer, investor. So the list goes on. Maybe we can add some more to the list, Josh, over time. But I think, like in terms of let's looking back to the, your question about AI, right? So I think we can start there. Our one-liner is that we're an AI-driven sales intelligence platform for companies that sell to providers or payers. So essentially, if you think of like a medical device company, let's say they have a prosthetic device, they're looking to find prosthetists, hand surgeons to sell to, being able to understand the total universe of that customer base, whether they're physicians or groups, and then being able to use data and AI to be really, really efficient with prospecting and then ultimately selling into them. So that's kind of how we are incorporating AI, but it's not like there's so many flavors of AI these days. Like obviously this isn't like a generative AI type application, at least not yet. But even in terms of like how we're applying it, it's more taking the foundational data that we have. So we have 3 buckets. There's 300 million lives worth of all payer medical prescription claims. There's provider payer directory data, and then there's population health data. So essentially, we're able to take in those buckets of data that we have access to, and then also, utilize what inputs we're getting from our customers, like who are they selling to, what is their profile, ideal customer profile today, and we're able to use that as inputs for our AI ML models to ultimately build these actionable insights. And I think that's kind of like the role of AI there, is actually translating data to insight. I think a lot of times commercial teams, especially sales teams, they're not required to be, nor are they very data savvy. So if they're given like a large data set to work with, it's actually hard for them to be able to use that in a way to like day-to-day prospect or build lead lists and develop like top of funnel more efficiently. So we're able to kind of like bridge that gap of like, okay, we have a lot of the useful data. Now we can help kind of build the insights to help those companies just prospect more effectively, and other types of market dynamics, if it's like estimating the market size or, looking at business cases to develop to justify like ROI and pricing, those kinds of insights we're able to build out. And so that's kind of like the way that we're applying AI. It's more like AI ML in terms of, the ultimate output. But yeah, I think the ultimate mission for us, which is actually to accelerate the adoption of like, digital tools, devices, therapeutics into like the provider payer, landscape. So it is interesting. I was thinking about this before the conversation today, like, what great work that Josh and Gradient Health are doing is like enabling, radiology and other types of imaging modalities to just be, hyper efficient in, being able to develop algorithms, detect certain types of diseases and get them to market, where similarly, like, we're not directly providing care, but we're also enabling like the adoption of a lot of these new innovations. So I do think there's some cool similarities between what we're doing and what Gradient Health's doing, at least from a mission perspective. But yeah.
Yeah, I love what you're doing, Vinay, because when I have a lot of conversations on the podcast, and I am trying to always help facilitate companies solving problems, and a lot of it, I'm in the marketing side. Much of this is marketing related, business related. A lot of these companies, you would be surprised, but they have I have to be careful, but they a lot of times often don't have those targeted customers like you would think, or they're building a new product. And so when I think of what you're doing, you're actually bringing that to life. I mean, they can start noodling around hypothesis with that data, and you can actually, seems like it's a really dynamic process. Otherwise, I hate to use the analogy, but I'm sorry, but LinkedIn, Sales Navigator, and Zoom Info just aren't going to do that when it comes to healthcare. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that, Michael, you've had experience too, right? Selling in healthcare.
Yeah.
I think like that's it's good to hear kind of your validation too. But yeah, I do think there are a lot of tools that are being used today that are kind of like a plug and play in healthcare. But if you're an industry agnostic sales enablement platform, it's actually very hard to apply that in healthcare, just because of like how unique the market is, right? It's not about like, oh, I'm going to find someone's digital presence online. Like, a lot of the healthcare professionals don't have LinkedIn's. A lot of physician groups we know don't have websites. In fact, in my in a previous company I worked for at Round Trip Health, we worked with hospital health systems. We had to get a fax machine sometimes to communicate with them. So understanding how to use data, knowing that like the market is so unique in healthcare, I think that's definitely important. And I'll also add, like, from my own experience, like I was selling into like provider groups, hospitals, health systems. The status quo, unfortunately, for a lot of reps today is like spray and pray, like, sending 1,000 emails to 1,000 physicians, getting 10 responses in one meeting. That adds up, right? If you're just kind of like trying to churn through, a bunch of like emails, and then you multiply that across a sales team, there's a lot of wasted output there. And so we're ultimately trying to help teams like also stay lean and efficient as they grow. And I think in this economy, like, I think a lot of companies are also, shifting towards that kind of model. It's like, hey, let's not just throw people at the problem because we can't, because we need to be more conservative about our budget and our, burn and everything. So we want to fit into that kind of movement too. Yeah.
And Vinay, I tell me if I'm wrong here, but I feel like targeting has become even more important with the advent of like ChatGPT. Like, I get 100 emails a day, and they all are some customized blurb that was very obviously written by AI. Like, one thing I have on my LinkedIn is at the bottom of my LinkedIn, it mentions that I speak Spanish, right? And someone sent me a sales email that had a blurb, and it was like, the smell of my abuela's like rice and beans. Like, it was like they obviously had not audited what this AI had written, and I was like, what are you talking about, right? But I think what that goes to show you is like, the wisdom of 4 or 5 years ago of like looking up your customer, writing a little blurb. I think some of that it's become less valuable as people are getting more spam. And so targeting and getting not just the right message across, but to the right people, I think is becoming even more important. And that's what you're working on.
Totally. Yeah, I can talk about this for a long time. By the way, that's a hilarious example of
it was a super weird email. I'm not even like saying it right, but it was like, I don't know. Yeah.
No. I mean, it's interesting, right? Like ideally, like what sales reps are taught is like, hey, don't spray and pray, but tailor. But now they're able to do both. They're able to spray and pray and tailor with these, like advancements in AI, and even that's not necessarily going to get you like the output that you want. And I think with us, what we try to prescribe is like with healthcare, like doctors are busy, right? As much spam as you get, I'm sure that they're getting like the same, if not more. And they're also not necessarily going to reply. So it's not like a scalable, like, hey, I'm just going to hit as many people over email. And I think with our experience with our customers, what we've seen is you need like a multi-channel type of outreach, strategy where email is part of it, but there's also trying to like, call the, owner of the physician practice, or even sending out mailers, physical mailers, or even going in person. Like a lot of the device companies, like they need to know how to hit their targets because they're actually going, door to door. So not saying that appropriate for every company, but you need to understand like, okay, these are my target accounts. I have to touch them multiple times with multiple types of channels. And I can't just sit and like email away. And even if I can tailor every email, that's not necessarily going to yield a lot of the results. So yeah, I totally, I think, resonate with that.
I think also it's like you got to know your customer too. It's like if I imagine your solution helps really educate your clients on those profiles of those customers, so it's actually a meaningful solution that the doctor would want. They're actually resourcing it. They're looking at it. They're whether it be a value-based solution or whether they're on a program with that. I mean, once it's those insights that are like, man, people, it's not selling, it's solving problems. So I think that's the big thing, because I look at this every day when I get bombarded with text messages on LinkedIn. And if someone just said just the right message, I'd be a lot more open, but they're just so bad. They're just so bad. And so I think that's the excitement, is that it's not that we want to be sold, but we want problems to be solved, and call it whatever. So
yeah, no, totally, Michael. And I'm actually curious if Josh will agree with this, but like, I think the best type of like sales is like consultative selling, especially in B2B. Like when I say consultative, is exactly what you said. It's solving an actual like business problem, right? You're not peddling like a product that may or may not be relevant, but you're literally trying to help them with a business problem. And so I think to your point, like what we're trying to provide is like the right insights for, let's say digital health company, device company, if they're, going after, let's say, physician group, and like, let's say the diabetes management space, and that's the space that they're in. You would want to know like how many patients that physician group has on their panel that have diabetes, that are potentially being prescribed like GLP-1s, that are in some, are they taking on risk, right? Well, how are they getting reimbursed? How are they billing to insurances? Like a lot of those insights are very tough to get, even when you're talking to the provider. Sometimes the provider themselves may not have a good handle on that data. So we're trying to bridge some of that, some of those gaps, so that ultimately the company selling can be consultative, right? I think that's so yeah, I'm curious if Josh agrees with that, because I think selling is so interesting in healthcare. So
yeah, no, I mean, exactly. Like I feel like Bonfire in particular changes it from like who might want my product to like how do I find the people that need my product.
Yeah,
right? It changes the question being asked fundamentally in a really, really good way.
Yeah, with the way you just described it, Vinay, I almost feel like you were just laying out like 7 different dots, that just all you're doing is just connecting those dots. And with that, you're like, wow, that's magic making. I mean, all those, I mean, really the panel of, diabetes, if they have that, how they're reimbursed, my gosh, that kind of knowledge, if you're able to do that, then you are you're creating a bonfire over there. So
love it. I didn't even tell Michael to say that, so that's great.
All right. Well, where do we finish here? Any exciting last minutes on AI and healthcare? Any groundbreaking for 2024? 2025 coming through as we have you guys here?
I mean, I think you in 2025 might see the first medical LLM get regulatory approval. So what I mean by that is like you can ask ChatGPT medical questions, right? And it'll answer. But is it a regulated medical device? No, right? So like, should it be used in patient care? Absolutely not. I think in 2025, we'll see the first true LLM get approved as part of patient care.
That's
right?
fascinating.
Whether it's a LLM that assists physicians or it's an LLM that patients interface with directly. Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but you're right. Probably...
I never would have believed that to happen that soon had I not seen that report written from scratch from an X-ray, right? Like I thought we were 5 years behind that, but we're not.
Wow.
We're there. Yeah.
Well, man, I feel like that's a great spot to end.
Okay. Cool.
I agree. That's a mic drop moment right there.
Yeah, it's a mic drop. Cool. Well, so let's say it one more time. What did you say? Because people might have missed that, Josh. You made the prediction. Say it now.
I think that the first medical LLM will get regulatory approval in 2025.
Awesome.
Right.
Well, let's see it. All right, friends. All right, you friends, you heard it from Josh right here. Today is, and the date is the 7th of November. So it's on 2024. Well, man, Vinay, Josh, so awesome to have you guys on today. This has been great conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having us. And this has been awesome as well.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Thanks again, Michael. And yeah, hopefully we can run it back sometime, Josh. I think this is a fun conversation, as always. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, guys.
We'll have an LLM on to take over the other conversation.